David Shearer.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's good to be able to stand and speak on this bill. It's a hefty tome of a bill, and I guess that speaks to the time that it took to go through the Select Committee and the 570-odd submissions that were presented to the committee in order to cover that. So this was introduced on 26th of May 2010. It was 2 years until 2013 that it actually, or more than 2 years until 2013 until it came back here, and we are still going through it in the committee stages. So we support this. Labor believes this is a step forward, and it clarifies considerably the issues around food safety, which, as the Minister points out, and we completely agree with that New Zealand should have the highest standards of food safety because our economy depends on it. And the scare around botulism last year emphasises that a scare around that sort of issue can have enormous impacts on our ability to export and the way that we are perceived across the world. So this bill, I think, successfully balances the need for safety on the one hand, but at the same time preserves the issues around our way of life. And we talked about the sausage sizzle and the earlier requirement, or possible requirement, for those to be heavily regulated and effectively regulated out of existence. Now, I don't know how much Campylobacter is spread through sausage sizzles, but I like the idea on a Saturday morning when I'm going around my sports teams and my electorates to pick up a breakfast snack from one of the charities that are around there in order to help them out, and that's part of our way of life. So the fact that has been balanced up with the need for safety in our food, I think, sir, is a step forward. And the fact that small businesses will be able to save money on this in terms of their compliance costs is also a step forward. So when we look at these, the food bill, what it effectively does is looks more at the risk of what might happen in terms of handling food, rather than looking at the businesses in effect themselves. So it looks at risk in terms of about 5 different areas, and I just want to run through these very quickly because it's in and around the purpose of the bill, which is the food control plans around the control of food, national programs to be implemented where there for medium and low risk food handling, food handler guidance, so those companies and others who are handling food will be able to obtain guidance, monitoring obviously of those programs, which is absolutely necessary, and also a much clearer requirement set out for the issue around food imports. And obviously within that, when you've got monitoring, you're also going to have penalties, and the penalties are updated as part of this lengthy tome as well. So all in all, sir, this has been a good piece of work that has been done cooperatively across the committee with good input from the officials, from what I understand, although I wasn't serving on the committee, and we have come up with a good piece of legislation that we're happy to support. But I want to come to the point that Damien O'Connor and Stephen Browning were just mentioning before, which is about country of origin labelling. And the Minister spoke to this, and I have to say that her reply or her response to this was a bit unconvincing. She said, well, we don't actually need this because 70% of our single ingredient foods are already being done voluntarily, or looked after voluntarily. The issue really isn't about the 70% that are being done voluntarily. The issue is about the 30% of those foods that are not being looked at and their country of origin being submitted, because those are the ones we have to worry about. And as an example, of walking into your local fish shop. You walk into your local fish shop, my assumption up until fairly recently, actually, you walk into our local fish shop, the fish in that shop is being largely caught or harvested in New Zealand. I know that there's going to be certain standards. Actually, that's a long way from the truth. a long way from the truth, and the cheaper cuts of fish, or the cheaper pieces of fish, Mr. Chair?
David Shearer.
The cheaper pieces of fish, sir, are actually sourced from places like Vietnam, where they're grown in ponds, fed hormones and a whole lot of other artificial products in order to grow those fish. They're brought to New Zealand and they're sold alongside New Zealand fish. Now, I would like to see fish grown in Vietnam clearly on that fish that we see in our fish shop, but we're not seeing that. Because if you did that, nobody would probably buy it. They'd be going for the New Zealand fish. So, sir, the voluntary code simply is not working as I believe New Zealanders have a right to believe it should. Then the minister said, but we can do it in another way rather than through this piece of legislation. But as this is a comprehensive examination and regulation of our food industry in New Zealand, why wouldn't you put that into something like this in the form of a very simple SOP rather than try and do it through some other means? So on the one hand, the minister is saying we don't need it because 70% of it's already done, although the 30% that's not done is actually a real worry. On the other hand, she said, but if we did need it to be done, well, does it need to be done or not? If it does need to be done, we can do it through some other way rather than this. So the argument's very unconvincing. Very unconvincing, and I believe that what we should be doing is moving through with these SOPs, getting these SOPs through the Parliament, and all we need is Peter Dunn to sign off on it. We can actually do that, and I would hope that he will be coming to the House later on to be able to help with that, so that we are able to have country of origin labelling that is clear and well set out for New Zealanders to see where their food is coming from. Very simple. I believe we have a right to that, sir, a right to enable that to happen. And although we have controversy elsewhere, the minister says that they're looking into this country of food labelling in Australia. Let me just show you this chart here. Now, people on television might not be able to, anybody else might not be able to see this, but this long column down here are the list of countries that do have country of origin labelling, and it includes all of the OECD countries that we do trade with. This small group here is the countries that don't have country of origin labelling, and there's about a dozen of them. And so we're in the company of Guatemala, Colombia, Honduras, Philippines, Vietnam, and good old New Zealand. Well, if we are a food exporting nation and we take food quality seriously, then we should be in the other column. We should not be on this side of the ledger where countries are looking to us and saying, why can't New Zealand regulate its food industry in the same way that we can? So if these countries can do it, why can't we? And the minister, sir, has been completely unconvincing in her argument that somehow it's not necessary because 70% of it's already done. And of course the 30% that is not done are doing it for reasons that would discourage people from buying their products. Of course that's the case. So as a result of that, 30% of the products that we are buying in our shops, nobody has any idea where they come from or actually what is inside them either. And that's another issue that I'll bring up another day, sir. But I believe that while this is a good piece of legislation, sir, the country or origin labelling is a serious omission into what was otherwise a very good piece of legislation that could have actually advanced us up the chart and put us on the right side of the ledger with all the other countries in the OECD rather than languishing alongside Colombia, Honduras and Vietnam. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Ian McKelvey.
The question be now put.
The question is that the question be now put. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Party votes. Order. Party votes been called for. Ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes in favour.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes opposed.
Green Party.
Votes opposed.
New Zealand First.
7 votes opposed.
Maori Party.
3 votes in favour.
Mana.
1 vote opposed.
Act New Zealand.
In favour?
United Future.
1 in favour.
Brendan Horan. Any other votes?
Members, the ayes are 64, the noes are 56. The question will be put. First, we have two amendments. The Honourable Damien O'Connor's amendments are set out on SOP number 440. The question is that the amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. So, party votes called for. Ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party.
14 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
7 votes in favour.
Maori Party.
3 votes in favour.
Mana.
1 vote in favour.
Act New Zealand.
1 vote opposed.
United Future.
1 vote opposed.
Brendan Horan. Any other votes?
Members, the ayes are 59, the noes are 61. The amendments are not agreed to. We now come to Stephen Browning's amendments are set out on SOP number 449. The question is that the amendments be agreed to. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The noes have it. Party votes called for. Ask the clerk for a party vote.
New Zealand National.
59 votes opposed.
New Zealand Labour.
34 votes in favour.
Green Party.
14 votes in favour.
New Zealand First.
7 votes in favour.
Maori Party.
3 votes opposed.
Mana.
1 vote in favour.
Act New Zealand.
1 vote opposed.
United Future.
1 vote opposed.
Brendan Horan. Any other votes?
Members, the ayes are 56, the noes are 64. The amendments are not agreed to. The question then is at part 1 stand part. Those of that opinion will say aye. To the contrary, no. The ayes have it. Members, we now move to part 2. This is debate on clauses 19 to 96 and schedules 1 to 4. The question is at part 2 stand part. The Honourable Damien O'Connor.
Thank you, Mr.